Here's their first cartoon together. Steamboat Itchy.
Now, I don't know if you know this about me, but I love video games. I might enjoy the fast-paced gameplay and shooting mechanics of the original Star Wars Battlefront 2. I might have a grand time with the survival and mystery nature of a game like Raft. Hell, I might even find myself with some happy memories of the first time trying out Mario Kart Double Dash. But no matter the genre, I adore video games. But one of my favorite genres of games that I constantly find myself revisiting are licensed games. Love them or hate them, there's just a charm that comes from sitting down and enjoying the console adventures of your favorite fictional characters. And while there are a lot of games to choose from, there exists one I personally believe towers above the rest in my opinion. A game so well crafted and lovingly made that I don't believe anything could come anywhere near its seal of quality in the realm of licensed games. That of course being the 2013 gaming hit, Ducktales Remastered. Now, we all know DuckTales is one of the most influential series in Disney's history. It's definitely cemented its place among the greats, focusing on the life of the richest duck in the world, Scrooge Mcduck, as we follow the shenanigans of him and his nephews, all the while having to deal with Scrooge's plethora of enemies, witches, thieves, rivals, as well as finding a boatload of treasure. The show lasted a good long while, spawning the Disney afternoon block, a TV movie, and of course, video games. And while the NES game is an important landmark for this franchise, DuckTales Remastered holds an extremely special place in my heart. So let's go over this gaming icon and dive deep into what makes it so good. This is DuckTales Remastered, Disney's love letter to gaming. The story to any game is one of the most vital aspects of any of its kind. It has the ability to either attract you to its concept or push you away depending on its quality. Stuff like The Walking Dead I feel is a good example of what I'm talking about, having a story that personally had me hooked throughout. With that being said, what do I think of DuckTales Remastered's story? Well, as a fan of the show, I'd have to say it very much appeals to that audience that loved the somewhat simple storytelling of many of the Disney Afternoons programming, with a plot that's simple yet engaging, focusing on Scrooge doing what he does best, being the richest duck in the world. After a run with the Beagle Boys at the money bin, Scrooge sets his sights on collecting the various treasures kept away at different parts of the world, and you as the player control him as you make your way to collecting these relics and becoming richer in the process. The plot may not have the emotional depth of something like Metal Gear Solid, but honestly it doesn't need to. A simple plot, I feel at least, carries the game throughout its completion for the player, offering just the right amount of personality for this game to hold up all on its own. The gameplay, much like the story, is simple but still has its fair share of challenge and accessibility for both old and new players. But DuckTales, both NES and Remastered, have one of the most unique moves to gaming. A move so great and addictive that no other game has attempted it since. The Pogo. This iconic move allows for higher jumping, enemy attacks, as well as faster traversal throughout the game's world. But it's more than that. Not only do you have the godly Pogo, but you have every other standard move, you know, walking and jumping, but also a special whack move in order to hit things into position or launch things into switches. The game's controls were made to mimic the original, and in this department it does a good enough job. You see, the difficulty or fun from the game doesn't come from the controls themselves, they come from the player utilizing the controls they've been given to beat any challenge the game throws at them. The game has different types of gameplay that it switches between consistently to keep the player interested, platforming, minecart levels, as well as boss battles and puzzles, keeping interest in the game high as well as offering a new type of gameplay style to keep you on your toes. Including the Money Bin and Mount Vesuvius, DuckTales Remastered has a total of 7 levels, all coming with their fair share of personality and enemies. In this way, it makes the game more varied and honestly more enjoyable. I remembered sinking a ton of time into each stage, avoiding each and every enemy and trap the levels threw at me. If I had to point out a favorite, it would definitely have to be the moon. It's one of the most iconic destinations in the game. The enemies, varied platforming and stages made this a joy every time. But unfortunately, I really hate a certain level at the end, that being the final stage Mount Vesuvius. Not the platforming at the beginning, that's completely fine, but the boss battle and the end challenge. Count Dracula Duck seems simple to beat, with you having to jump on bats to pogo onto him, but you forget the bat's hitboxes are smaller than any other creatures in the game, and Count Dracula Duck's avoiding stages are the worst, only giving you a split second to react. By the end, I was yelling and screaming with anger because it took so long to beat. And don't get me started on platforming at the end of the stage. The controls made for you to jump over long gaps are not as helpful to climb and jump with a time limit. Seriously, I love this game, but I feel bad for anyone who played this stage hoping for a good ending. It's just not worth it. But other than that, the stages are all good and offer some semblance of challenge, but also casual experience that anyone can get behind. By far out of all the aspects, the design work WayForward Entertainment put into this is what keeps me coming back to it. All meshing together into something that really does appeal to both cartoon and gaming fans. All the characters were hand-drawn, made that way to reflect their Disney Afternoon counterparts, which is why whenever you see Scrooge move, there's a much more smooth feel to him. This also applies to much of his idle animations as well. But that's not all. There's also use of hand-painted and tirelessly crafted backgrounds, as well as stylized and cel-shaded 3D used for the settings of each level. Altogether, this gives off a classic game feel while also staying modern, with a few personal favorites of mine being the money bin and especially the moon. But on-screen design isn't the only thing this game excels at in this department. There's also sound design, one being music. Props to the extraordinary efforts of the game's composer Jake Kaufman. His scores gave each and every level its own identity, all being fast-paced and fun to listen to. And of course, with this being a Disney licensed game, the WayForward crew had the assistance of the company at their aid. So to add that much more spice to the game, they got the entire original voice cast to return for this very project, just adding that much more charm to it. Hearing the greats like Alan Young and June Foray really took me back to watching the original series with excitement. Their delivery just made the game so much more enjoyable. It shows that there were no shortcuts taken, and the team over at WayForward deserve major props in this regard. In the end, Ducktales Remastered is exactly what I personally love in video games. Games with a sense of personality no matter how old or dated. Games that no matter what style of genre offer more of an escape, more than any other. This is why I consider Ducktales Remastered Disney's love letter to gaming, because it feels like a massive labor of love. It would have been so much easier to leave this game as simple as possible, but instead there's a genuine level of care put into it. So whether you're a DuckTales fan, a TV fan, or even a video game fan, I highly recommend you take a look at this absolute gem of gaming. Hey, you know, with all this talk about DuckTales, I wonder if I should give the reboot a shot.
Well, geek of the GeekToons YouTube channel, I, Manuel D from the Manuel D YouTube channel, have something for you.
Your pops wanted you to clean your dusty ass room, Miles.
What the fuck? Hey, yo, don't do Miles like that, y'all. Come on.